Hi everybody, this is Jeremy Siskin. I'm the author of your favorite books, Playing Solo Jazz Piano and the Jazz Piano Fundamentals series. And today, I'm here with a newish friend, Peter Smith, who just put out an album called Dollar Dreams. Welcome.
Thanks, man. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so I was looking through your bio, and maybe this is just my perception, but you're like having the quintessential LA musician career. You're playing some jazz, you're musical directing for big shows like The Four and Duets and like big television shows. You're doing soundtrack work. You're also doing some acting, I saw. And you're just like a killing player who's making that happen. I guess I don't have a question, but do you feel like you're having a quintessential LA career? Was that something that you like set out to do?
Oh man, it's funny. Like you kind of go the way where things take you, right? And opportunities arise, and I don't think it's something I necessarily planned. I had all this training as an actor. I was doing a fair amount of acting in New York when I lived there, and that's sort of why I came to LA, even though I was always doing music as well. And then in LA, the music started to just take off, and so I just followed it, but I think the acting work still kind of came in dribs and drabs, and it all kind of feeds each other, I guess. The nice thing about music, though, is you can always do it, right? Even if you don't have the gig even if you don't have people to play with, you can sit down at the piano and play. That's not really true with acting. You need the script and the director, and you need to get the job, and you can't just sort of stand in front of the mirror and goof off.
Well, you can.
I guess you can.
And I mean, your bio is also impressive, just in terms of the number of people, both in the jazz world and outside of the jazz world, that you've worked with, in the stature. I mean, I know that I saw Stevie Wonder, Kelly Clarkson, Natalie Cole, all in your bio. I know this is a totally unfair question. Is there a most memorable event or gig or star-studded something, that you want to share, that you're willing to share?
Well, I guess this is kind of fun.
Okay.
So yeah, I've been very fortunate to work on two sort of big singing competition shows as associate music director. So the first one was called Duets, and John Beasley was the MD. So I was kind of working under him and working with the contestants. The second one was The Four, and that was under Rickey, and then season 2 was Adam Blackstone. But on Duets, the idea was like the contestants would duet with our 4 sort of superstar singers, and they were Kelly Clarkson, John Legend, Robin Thicke, and Jennifer Nettles. And John Legend ended up doing speaking of Natalie Cole, the unforgettable duet, that Natalie made famous through technology to be able to.
Right.
So they were pretty much doing that arrangement, but with John actually singing, and of course John plays. And and I got this call, like while I was on set one day. They're like, "Peter, John needs you." And I'm like, okay. And so he calls me, and he has sort of like a dressing room area, and he's got a keyboard, and or actually no, I think this was on one of the sets where there was a piano, and he's like, "Hey, I want to play the introduction to Unforgettable, like Nat, the
right, like the shearing voicings, kind of.
Right, exactly."
Right.
And he's like, is it okay? Like, he wanted me to teach him, and he was like, he totally had it. Like, he didn't need me at all, but it was just funny to be sort of summoned as John Legend's piano teacher for like a second, and then he didn't really need me. But yeah, I'm so impressed with him. What a talent, and what a smart guy. Man, he's just so erudite, and just a great person. Really,
yeah,
really
I believe it. I believe it. All right, but let's talk about your album. So
Yeah.
Dollar Dreams, and what inspired you to? Is this your first album as a leader? No.
It's I made a couple of records like like 2010, 2011, sort of right before I started hitting the road with Molly Ringwald. And those were larger ensemble records. So this is my first trio record.
Got it.
And it's something I've always wanted to do. I mean, you know, as a pianist, it's like we grew up on all those classic trio recordings, thinking like, oh, maybe one day I'll make one of those, you know?
Yeah.
And I finally did. You know, it just all came together naturally. I actually, we were talking before we pressed record, we were talking about Libretto in Paso Robles, where they have that 9-foot Steinway. And I had managed to secure my first gig there in March of 22. And I was like, oh man, I've got all this material. I'm gonna do it with, you know, Reggie Quinterly and Mike Garola. And oh, it looks like we can get a couple of other gigs in town like before then. And I was like, well, we should really go into the studio after that, because we'll be like, we won't even need to rehearse, you know? We'll be
right,
all
yeah, exactly.
And so we did, and I was lucky to have a friend of mine come on board as a producer, and then we did this cool thing where we recorded with the intention to mix in Dolby Atmos. So we recorded at United Recording Studio, and for piano trio recording, they set up like 40 microphones.
Wow.
So, you know,
wild.
Yeah, I mean, there were 5 microphones just on the piano, I think, or 5 or 6, and then, you know, a bunch of microphones on the drums. But then there were all these microphones at different spots in the room to literally represent those spots in the 3-dimensional Dolby Atmos mix landscape. So that's what's kind of cool, and
that's
I think we're the first jazz record to do that. So that's notable, you know. And it's pretty amazing, Dolby Atmos. I don't know if you've experienced it, but
no.
It's they talk about it being as big a difference as from when we went from mono to stereo.
Wow.
It's, you know, and it's different from surround sound, because surround sound is pretty much stereo, but just around you on a single plane. This is everywhere.
Wow.
Under, in front, above, like.
And what kind of technology do you need to hear it?
It can be simulated in earbuds, headphones. If you get the Apple AirPod Pros simulated, so you'll like turn your head and you'll hear a different part of the mix.
Oh, interesting.
Which is really cool.
That's wild.
And then you can have a home setup that's like, you know, that has the speakers in the proper proportions. But you can also, like most, like Tesla, Mercedes, Jaguar, they all have the speakers like in the roof and under in the door, like in the proper proportions. So you can, and I think in like 3 years, it's going to be in a new Toyotas and Nissans.
Right. So it's coming.
It's coming. Yeah.
You're ahead of the curve. I love it.
Yeah, hopefully.
Tell me just one more minute about the music. So which trios are your favorite? You said you grew up, you know, like we all did, loving jazz trios. If you had to name 3 or 4 that you modeled this album after, who?
Yeah,
you know?
well, I think my absolute favorite piano player, if I had to pick, would be Wynton Kelly. So, cool. You know, like Kelly at Midnight is one of the greatest trio records, I think, of all time. Of course, when I was really, you know, first starting with jazz piano, Oscar Peterson was a huge influence. So that trio with Ray Brown and Ed Thigpen, of course. The Tommy Flanagan trio, like I used to hear them all the time when I lived in New York.
Oh, wow.
With Peter Washington and Louis Nash. That had a big impact on me, and certain things on the record kind of follow that approach, I think. Also the Ray Bryant trio. There's a song that we do on the record that's from Ray Bryant. It's Gotta Travel On. It's spiritual. Nice. And that's kind of modeled on his arrangement. But yeah, I mean, Bill Evans, of course. Yeah, I can't believe I didn't mention him earlier. But you know, and
there's too many to name, right?
yeah, and especially like this record doesn't get, I think, shouted out enough, because there's so much justifiable attention on, like, you know, the Scotty LaFaro, Paul Motion, like Live at the Vanguard and all that. But the record he made just before that, It's called Everybody Digs Bill Evans.
Oh yeah, it's a great one.
And it's Philly Joe Jones and I think Sam Jones. And it's so swinging.
Yeah.
And yet it's all of Bill's touch and all of his harmonic concept too. I've worn that record out. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a great one.
Yeah.
All right, but I've called you here today.
Yes.
To teach me something. To teach me a favorite piano exercise, something that you do that makes you feel like you play better. So you said you have something for me, so I'm excited.
I do. So one of the things that I've been messing around lately, and I think I'm naming them right. This idea, we have pentatonic scales. We all know about those. And then there's quadratonic, I think. Is that how you call it? The 4-note scales. Have you heard of this?
No.
That's how it was explained to me.
Okay.
So it's basically like the triads. So the C, D, E, G. That would be a quadratonic.
Okay.
And then you can do it in different inversions. So, right?
Okay.
And you've got this when applied in a certain way, it can be really modern. It can be like McCoy uses this a lot, and the way he uses it is superimposing it on different things. Okay. So like if you have like a C7, the triad that works over that would be like the D triad, E flat, F sharp, A flat, A, right? Mm-hmm. So you can, when you've got a C7, you can run these quadratonic things of those triads on top of it, and it's instantly like McCoy land. It's got this really modern kind of sound. Mm-hmm. And so what I've been doing is like trying to find ways to incorporate that, but also include like some of the bebop language and phrasing that I love so much, so that I can get some of that modern sound into my improvisations, but still keep like some of the Barry Harris elements and the way phrasing the eighth notes and adding triplets and stuff. Okay. So I came up with this exercise where I go through the circle of fifths, and I'll have like, like a C7 shell in my left hand, like, say C, E, B flat. And then in my right hand, I'll do the quadratonic on a D triad. So, and I'll go up up an octave. So, okay. And then I come down an F sharp triad, starting on that A sharp. And then back to C.
Let me try that much. So
yeah, there you go.
Okay.
So and then I'll run that through like the circle of fifths. So I'll go, and then right? Yeah, that's it. And then when I take it, I can think about how I might use it like in a blues. Like if I'm playing a blues in C, I only have one bar of C7, right? And then I go to the F7. Okay. So I might, like and take it down into wherever I'm playing, or even.
I see. So you kind of plan on the way up. You're going to use that quadratonic. There, you use the D, and then play.
Yeah.
Playing quote unquote out, even though it's not really out, but it's like
right.
Out feeling.
Yeah.
And then you're bringing it back in for bar 2.
Yeah. And the thing about when McCoy uses this stuff, he has like these wonderful. Like his rhythms are almost like robotic a little bit. I mean, they're swinging, but he's right. It's a different eighth note feel than say like a Wynton Kelly, right? Uh-huh. And when I say that, don't misconstrue that as disparaging. It's like, it's amazing, and it's his approach, and it's part of, I think, how we identify like in the context of jazz, like, oh, that's McCoy, that's modern. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Part of it has to do with that rhythmic feel.
Right.
And I was thinking like, well, wow, what if I could do some of that stuff, but put it more like, You know, like have it
Put it
swing
more
a
in
little
a
more. Like,
swing
what if I start on the
context.
and 1 and 2 and 3? You know, what if I wait till beat 2? What if I throw in some triplets? Like, how can I mess around with this? And then, you know, just as a way to get into it, I've been you know, going through the circle of fifths, right, and just going through it. Um, and just to get it all under my fingers, so that when I want to make these kind of split second improvisatory decisions, that I'm not like reaching for it. You know what I mean?
Nice.
So yeah, that's where my head's been. So
Nice.
yeah, I guess if
One of
you
the
were to
ones
do it
I'm
as
always. Oh, sorry.
yeah, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say one of the ones I'm always fascinated by is playing the A major over like a C7, because then
Right.
you end up with a note that's outside of the key.
Right, and it
Right,
works.
because that second, right, that's
Yeah.
clashing.
Right.
But there's something about that quadratonic. I'm now using this word. Thank you
Right.
for introducing me to a new word. There's something
Yeah.
about that sound that holds together well enough that I'm like, I believe it, even. Right.
Right.
Like.
Right. Yeah, and you do anything with enough rhythmic conviction, it's going to sound right. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's the thing that I always try to, you know, when I have students, you know, to point out to them, like, you know, rhythm is everything. You know, you can make all kinds of mistakes if your rhythm is strong.
Totally.
Yeah.
So does quadratonic, I'm asking you a question I'm guessing you don't know
Yeah.
the answer to, but does it particularly refer to that group of four notes, or could it be kind of any four-note scale?
You know, it's a good question. The person who told me about, you know, who showed me this, was Mike Ladon, who's my mentor, you know,
Yeah.
and
And I would
I
trust
caught up
whatever
with
he
him
says.
like in New York. Oh gosh, must have been 6 years ago now, and just grabbed a lesson with him. And I was like, Mike, I want to, you know, because I spent so much time like starting with like Teddy Wilson and, you know, all the real bebop and hard bop guys. And I was like, I want to see if I can mess around with some more modern stuff. And he's like, well, let me show you this, because, you know, and that's what he called it. He called it quadratonic. And yeah, the way he described it was putting in the, you know, the 2 or the 9, you know. So it's basically like a triad plus the 2.
Right, yeah.
You know?
One of the reasons that I ask is because I teach something, sometimes I teach something similar to students.
Yeah.
That like the triad plus 1 can be a really good modern device. And so I teach the triad plus the second, but also the triad plus the 4th is something that I hear musicians doing a lot, and also has a different, because it's not as pentatonic-y, but, you know,
Right.
it has a kind of different.
Oh yeah, right.
Different kind of like really bright modern sound. So I'm just
Yeah.
kind of curious whether maybe there's terminology.
Yeah,
floating
maybe
around
that's
that I'm
the
not
other
aware
side
of.
of it.
Yeah, I always think of there's this key thing where he lays
Oh yeah.
on I Got It Bad, and it
Right,
kind of has
on
that
the melody
3,
and
4, or
negative.
5 like shell to it.
Right.
But I noticed like Meldau and some of these other modern guys doing the 1, 2, 3, 5 shell, but also the 1, 3, 4, 5.
Right.
Kind of a shell is probably not the word. That's not the technical word. So
Right.
yeah, just curious if something's going on.
No, that's you just hit me to something, man. I never, you know, I've heard.
I don't
that
know if
sound.
it's anything.
Right.
But
and I
it's
think I've
it's
played
a
that sound, but
possibility.
I don't think I've identified it that way, and that's really useful to get to it quickly if you're hearing it. You know what I mean? To think of it that way. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe it is, maybe it ain't.
Yeah. It's funny, you know, just in my own, and maybe this will be helpful to people watching, like, you know, I feel like with chordal structures, I really got, like, I have tremendous fluidity with, you know, notation and how to describe, you know, B flat 7, flat 13, flat 9, you know, that kind of thing. But with scales, I find that I'm always forgetting the names of things, because the way that sticks in my head is the practicality of it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like for an E flat minor 7 flat 5, I'm going to play an E major scale from E flat to E flat.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what that's called really.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean? But like that's how I think of it, and I get to it quickly.
Totally.
Like, because if I start thinking about, super Locrian or what, these it's like, I'm like, wait, what is that again? Like, you know what I mean?
Totally.
Where it's like, oh no, that's what it, if you think of it that way, you get to it quickly and it has all the right notes,
Yeah. And I've been, so this might just be interesting to you. We're just hanging out at this point.
Right.
But I've been figuring out lately that for learning a new scale, like let's say a super Locrian scale, students get to it so much faster if they can remember it in chords. So instead of saying, the melodic minor starting a half step up, right? If I'm teaching C, I'm like, okay, it's a D flat minor and E flat minor.
Oh, right.
Make sure not to get this wrong. Or you could think of it in different ways. You could think of it as a G flat and an A flat. And when I teach it that way, or for me, when I learn something that way, it's like, oh, like I can find all the notes immediately.
Right.
If I'm thinking of it linearly as a scale. I have 7 things to remember. There's all kinds of places to go wrong. So I think there is something to remember, like shapes. And chords, like within things, rather than scales. Probably both are good, but they're just like different ways of thinking, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
Does that resonate with you?
Yeah. It's all about shapes because that's what our hands go to, right? It's like there's a muscle memory there,
right?
And especially when you're improvising and the tempo's on you, and you gotta get to things quickly, Yeah, that's cool, man.
All right, so people's assignment, if they want to practice, would be probably starting with this exercise that you gave of going up. Now it's the quadra scale.
Yeah, quatratonic, I think.
Quatratonic, based on the 2, and then down the one based on the tritone, the flat 5.
Right.
But they could make any combination that they want. Go up one, down the other. You could practice. One down the other, but maybe mix any of these quadratonic scales over a dominant.
That work, and you've got like 4 or 5 of them. You've got the triad built on the 2, on the flat 3, on the sharp 4, on the sharp 5, on the 6. They all kind of work.
So you got your work cut out for you.
Yeah.
Well, Peter, thank you for generously spending your time. So everybody should go listen to Dollar Dreams, and if they want to learn more about you or reach out for some reason, what's the best place to do it?
Oh yeah, so it's www.petersmithmusic.com. So just my name, petersmithmusic.com. The album is streaming in Dolby Atmos on all the platforms that do Dolby Atmos, which is Apple Music, Tidal, and Amazon Music Unlimited. And then it's streaming in glorious stereo, everywhere else, including my Bandcamp page where people can buy it if they want to support that way.
Awesome.
But yeah, it's all on my website.
Well, thank you so much. Thanks for spending the time, and good luck on your upcoming tour.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Okay, see you, Jeremy.
See ya.